I frankly think it makes a lot of people in my industry a lot of money. If you had really good results with me last January when you were super motivated and you did really great for like a month until your weight loss stalled and your cravings went through the roof, you might think back like 6 months or a year later, like, oh, yeah, I was doing so well with that one trainer who sold me all those sessions. Maybe I should go back to him. Maybe I should hire him again and have better willpower this time, without realizing everything that you said. Those hormones are very, very powerful. And they work both ways. Like your hunger hormone will make you eat. It is going to make you eat. But your fullness hormones make you stop. Like when we go to a Brazilian steakhouse and you literally are eating the most delicious food and you can't even take one more like tiny bite of delicious meat. It works both ways. And they're very strong and very powerful hormones that will make you think about food nonstop until you eat, or they'll make you stop eating altogether.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've got to get our healthy hormones. We've got to get those in balance. So I love what you're talking about here, because there's a way out. There we can change our metabolism. We can increase that rate. And we can get off of that crazy up and down roller coaster.
Absolutely. We totally can. So let's go back to your own story. You were introduced to a book that I have very near and dear to my heart as well. How in the world were you able to get off of this pattern of like dieting and find something that actually worked for you?
Yeah, so I had had an injury and I had had a meniscus tear. I'd been over exercising when I was like kind of at a high weight. And so I was thinking I was going to go the surgery route. And so I had a consult to go on that. But again, a false hope, Casey, because how many people do we know that have had that sleep surgery or they've had that bypass and they still struggle? It did not fix their relationship with food, their relationship with their self, nor their nutrition, nor their food addiction. And so they're still in that same spot. So I can even look at that and think, that probably really wouldn't have worked for me long term anyways. But I've always done really well in community. I've always done really well. I'm having like an accountability or a buddy. And so I did have a super smart friend who was really good on science. It said, hey, this is about the hormones. This is about insulin. And let's look at this book, the Dr. Fung's book, The Obesity Code, to help us really understand these root causes. So the science grabbed me. And the support systems grabbed me. And so setting out to do something with other people was important. And so that's when I started setting out to trying some of these fasting protocols. I would join groups on Facebook, and there would be some group fasts that I would join in on. And my message and my method has become so refined over time. It's just gotten better. And so that those early times, I definitely think I made a lot of mistakes. I would not go about it that way anymore. And I overfasted during that period of time as well. But yeah, it was a step-by-step process. And so just getting into that intermittent fasting lifestyle was so important, having that support system. And then the nutrition started to come into line. And then later, the ultimate nutrition came into line. It was like the ultimate win for me. So I've been carnivore for, only it'll be about 3 years, but for a short period of time. But having that piece come together was like the ultimate solution for all of it. So I'd gone from 300 to 200 with mostly intermittent fasting with some keto in there mixed in as the dietary approach, but I still had the sweeteners in, I still had this sweet fat combination. And so I was still binging. So my fasts were great. I felt so good when I got into that fasting zone, but when I was eating, I still was getting off and making bad choices. And so I didn't have that confidence quite yet, and didn't have what I would think of as maintenance confidence, because I knew if I let the fasting part drop, that my maintenance was going to drop on me too.
It's so interesting that you were able to buy into Dr. Fung's work when you had tried so many other diets. What made this stand out? What was it about the science that really grabbed your attention?
Yeah, I think because I could tell it was a root cause. I could tell it was just through reading through that. I was convinced of that. And so I think that something about that clicked, that it was the hormones, that it wasn't the food too, because the food is a signaler and the food signals at your hormones. But I think that it was just enough confidence. And the other thing too, Casey, was that I love the concept of, in the fasting world, a lot of us, like, we're kind of done with macros, calories, tracking. And so that was also very appealing to me, because it felt like something that was doable, that could be a lifestyle forever. And hearing from other people that was like, yeah, I got into this fasting lifestyle as long as I'm, staying on top of this and doing the work of the fasting, because fasting's not always fun. Like, it's uncomfortable. You have to go about it correctly. And it's like any other habit, like exercise. Like, if you get out of that habit, then you're going to start losing some of the benefits that you have from it. So I think that it seemed much more intuitive. It seemed like something I could do. I was thrilled to not have to be fussing around with macros and calories and things like that. So there was just enough there that's like, yeah, I think this can be a long-term solution.
Wow, that's amazing. Dr. Fung was the first one that explained what I was noticing on the metabolic carts. Why were these people who were doing fasting coming in to measure their metabolic rates? They weren't eating very many calories because they were fasting, but their metabolism wouldn't drop. It would increase by hundreds of calories. And like, you would observe this and be like, what is going on? What is different about this than calorie restriction? Because I'm seeing literally the opposite effect of what I would see on a diet. And it was only the obesity code and understanding how Jason Fung explained the science that I was able to understand what I was seeing. It was crazy.
Isn't it so exciting? And I love it. I'm still explaining that. I explain that at least once a week, couple times a week. And so I love that, because I love that it's muscle protective, and it's because it's ancestral. And so I mean, it's just it's in the design, right? And so, but it just doesn't make sense that if you're in these periods of fasting, you need energy and you need strength to go like get your prey. And so I think that, when you think about, versus when you're in a starvation mode and the food is just getting less and less and less and less, you need to conserve. And so you need to get smaller and smaller and smaller, so you can almost go into like a hibernative type of a state. But when this is a feast fast approach, and so when your up days, you're really feasting well, then yeah, that's you need the energy and the strength to get that good nourishment for the next feast.
Yeah, totally. And besides his kind of like snarky humor that he has, he's like a little bit sarcastic with the way he says things. And like, our kids' body's so stupid that they need like, juice boxes between, quarters of a soccer game or whatever. And like, he does so good with the analogies and understanding like you have a fridge on your main floor. You also have a deep freezer downstairs, and it's harder to access, but you have like a half a cow down there. You've got tons of calories down there. It's just a little bit less convenient to get to. But once you find it, you can use it. You can eat that food. And that's the way the body eats your own body fat percentage. And like you said, protects the muscle, which again, we were totally observing. We could get people to lose weight like 100% coming from fat, validated on body fat scales, which none of my personal training certifications say you can even do that. And we noticed it all the time. It happens so easily for most people. Now, I want to go back to some of the mistakes you made. You've already explained some of them. Fasting, to me, I explain it as almost like the gold standard. It's something that tends to work for most people. Obviously, a few caveats and things we need to talk about there, but it seems to work really well for most people. But if you're not changing your diet all the way, fasting is going to be so difficult. How are you white knuckling some of those early fasts?
Oh man, yeah, I think I was pulling in all of the tricks that I could. Yeah, things that I realized I don't need to do. So you would kind of over rely on the electrolytes. And then, oh gosh, there was snake juice, right? I actually do like snake juice, but there's kind of a whole philosophy with there that's a little bit of an issue. But so yeah, you would try salts, you would try coffees, you would try, you're swapping one ridiculous for a different ridiculous, and you're trying to kind of game the system if you can, and you're trying to, and then you can do, let's do these dirty fasts or something. And it's like, okay, to me, I would much rather do a shorter clean fast and do it well and build up your clean fasting muscle than to do this like partial descriptions of like a little bit of fats, or we can do up to 500 calories, or and so there's all of these different kind of versions of it. So I think I just tried all the tricks in the book and tried a lot of white knuckling, but that's why, so without the right nutrition, I don't think it would have worked. And so I attribute the maintenance portion of it to absolutely getting my nutrition figured out. And for me, that mean abstainer. I'm an abstainer all the way. For me, it was just like, cut that crap out, no sweet and fat together, no nuts. There's so many things on the keto plan that are really addictive and damaging foods. And for me, it's approved. I can have almond butter, or whatever. And so I would just still wasn't dealing with the hyper palatable food was a real issue for me too. And so that's what I love about carnivore. To me, there are a couple of things in carnivore that are still hyper palatable, but if you're getting to just like normal tasting food that triggered the right satiation when you've had the right amount, then it just puts food in its place. And so just a lot of struggle, a lot of white knuckling, a lot of crazy dieting mentality and applying it to fasting. And so I'm so glad that I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can't imagine trying the one without, changing the content of the diet. And, I'm an abstainer as well. We just got back from a vacation. I try to relax when I'm on vacation. We ordered, burger patties and an omelet, and it came with fries, and I didn't say no fries. So the fries came. I figured they look gross. They look really good, excuse me. I had one, and then I had two, and then I had five, and then I dipped it in, ketchup, and then like I was emptying the cup of fries into my mouth at the very end. And it's like I don't know if I'm an addict of food. I just know that I continued eating that further than I wanted to, and I couldn't really stop until every single one was gone. So that to me is close enough to say like I really am better off with 100% than I am even trying like 90%.
I love it. And I love how you define that. That is so important because kind of trending in the space right now is food addiction, right? And we work with these specialists that can help us to understand like psychologically what are the tools to have a healthy relationship with food. We don't need to call it food addiction. So I like what you said because we can just say that this is an issue of hyperpalatable foods and of foods that just there's not a stop sign on them. And so whether we have to feel it's our deepest, darkest secret, we can't control ourselves, or whether we're just like, no, this is just a food like the commercial. Literally, you can't have just one. That's by design. And so I agree with that. It's just a not for me. My life is so much simpler and better if I'm just like, not for me.
Yeah, simpler. That's a great way to say it. I love that.
Mhm.
So tell us about your transition over to carnivore. That obviously is such a game changer for so many people. Low carb, great. Keto, even better for a lot of people. It can get some weight loss. Still, for most people, didn't really solve all the niggling issues until they went more carnivore, and then magically, wonderfully, unexplainably, all of these things just change, get better. Tell us about your experience with carnivore.
Oh, it's so great. So my friend Tiffany Henschel, I'd met her on a fashion board on Facebook. And it was kind of cool because I actually did have pictures of myself when I was quite large because I was taking pictures of outfits and things like that. And so sometimes people, when you're in a size 26, you're 300 pounds, you don't want any pictures of you taken anytime. But I had some from that period of time. Well, she was a faster and she was carnivore, and she chronicled her journey in very vivid detail on a private Facebook group. And so I got to hear and see somebody going through the transition. And so hers was a journey of food freedom, and hers was a journey of confidence, and just feeling so different around food and not controlled by the food, like those fries we were talking about, right, Casey? And so this was just cool to see her day-to-day experience with this. So I was like, I want to feel like that because I was stuck in keto treats, artificial sweeteners, and I was ordering these sugar-free chocolates and stuff. Russell Strovers and Reese's, they're made for diabetics. You can have all these. And so I was just stuck in that. And so I just was still like a slave to food. Like I had done really well. I had lost at least 100 pounds, was kind of struggling in the 190s, couldn't really, was kind of in and out with that. And so I decided to try it in January 2021 for the 30 days. And that's a World Carnivore Month. A lot of people will do this, like give it a shot, And so what happened is I felt so good. My fasts were a little bit harder at first. I had to kind of back to maybe like a 14 or a 16-hour fast when I was first getting started with it, but was able to layer in a bunch of things. So I was able to do my workouts. It was supporting my workouts. I think I was getting, once you're in that carnivore diet, that's so supportive for muscle. So that was getting better. And was just feeling better. Mood was feeling better. Even it was like another level. It just took everything to another level. And so that's like when people are like, well, do I have to go 100% carnivore? I'm like, of course not. You do you. I do carnivore, you do you. But man, I'd love you to try it. If you just tried it for 30 days, 90 days, because so many people they just reached this other spot that they didn't get with the fasting and the keto approach. So it was a relief to not have the sugar and to not have the sweet and not have the keto treats, to have that gone. I didn't miss it. I felt more satisfied eating more meat and eggs. And So I don't know, my satiation was better. Everything just felt easier and more neutral. Food became even more neutral, but still like I love it, absolutely delicious, but it just was no longer controlling me.